Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club, founded in 1976 by 13 visionary women leaders. CMC's mission is to connect people and ideas to community and conversation. To carry out this mission, the CMC explores policy issues, current events, and lessons in leadership at forums like these. This one is an amazing one this week. And from its beginning, the CMC has welcomed absolutely everyone. I'm Tony Bell, President and CEO of Phoenix Consulting Co. I'm also the very proud member of the CMC Board of Trustees. I'm so pleased that you are all with us for today's forum. We always begin by meeting our newest CMC members, and we hear that we heart emoji and love our new members. So please welcome. I'll give you the 4 names, and we can just keep this roaring bit of applause. Angela Chapman and Dr. Angela Chapman and Michael DeFabo with Columbus City Schools. And I believe we have this person attending for the first time and in our audience, Chris Peterson. Stand up, Chris. Woo, 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 woo. Chris Hurtubise, Abby Reynolds, and Taylor Tomu and Taylor's in the audience today, all from Ohio History Connection. And Shirley Wu with the Ohio OSU Arts and Sciences Center for Career and Professional Success. Welcome to CMC. And if you're not already a member, well, we need to work on that together because we're better together. CMC membership to CMC is open to absolutely everyone. You don't need to be rich or famous, although if you're in this room, you probably are famous and we'd love for you to be rich because we are a nonprofit. But you just need to be curious about Central Ohio. And you'll save on forum fees every time you attend, and you'll be supporting CMC and its commitment to civil discourse. So, what does it take to become a member of CMC, you ask? Did you ask that? Very good, thank you. Well, it's a very, very uncomplicated process. You just need to visit columbusmetroclub.org and sign up. Or you can see Lainey Cuthbert, who's standing there near the doors in the purple, and she will certainly help you. She's a wonderful ambassador. So please take a moment to look at the back of your forum flyers. Let me see you do that bit of homework now. All of the teachers in the room and educators will appreciate you doing that bit right now. There you'll see so many generous organizations that support your non-for-profit Columbus Metropolitan Club. We certainly could not exist without you. Speaking of supporters, thank you very much to today's sponsors, JP Morgan Chase, Battelle, where's Battelle? And WCBE 90.5 FM. There's our friends. And did you know that you can listen to the rebroadcast of today's forum on WCBE radio? You absolutely can. You'll hear today's forum on this coming Saturday at 7 a.m. And if you don't get up that early on weekends, or if you're already out and about running your errands on weekends, that's okay, because you can also download today's forum anytime from the WCBE podcast experience website. That's awesome. Aren't we using tech? We're so grateful to the Center for Human Kindness. Don't you love that name? Center for Human Kindness. It tells you everything they do at the Columbus Foundation and the Columbus Dispatch for presenting today's live stream. And that's being carried on CMC's social media platforms. Certainly, I watch live stream from the YouTube channel. And let's thank all of those who are supporting today's forum, including each of you. Okay, and now let's get to today's community conversation. America's schools are standing at a post-COVID crossroads, and I do mean crossroads. And few school systems are facing more changes than Ohio's. Why? Because we've got a big growing population, especially here in Central Ohio. The state's new budget includes a shakeup in school oversight that transferred authority from the State Board of Education to the governor's office, and plus many more changes that they'll talk about. So what does the future hold for Ohio schools? Dun, 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 dun. We're about to find out. To introduce today's expert speakers. Why are they experts? Because they're in there doing that work every single day. Please welcome to the podium Courtney Filato from today's amazing sponsor, J.P. Morgan Chase. Courtney, the podium is all yours.
Thank you, Tony. That was a lot of good energy. I want to acknowledge in the room as I was standing here staring out that the question portion of today should be amazing. I see a couple former state superintendents. I see college presidents. I see senior district officials. So this is going to be a good one. Thank you so much, Tony. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of all of us at J.P. Morgan Chase, it is an honor to be part of this discussion today. My name is Courtney Filato, and I lead philanthropy for J.P. Morgan Chase in Ohio. J.P. Morgan Chase is committed to expanding access to economic opportunity through career readiness for young people around the world. The firm supports efforts to develop educational pathways for students that provide higher education, high-value credentials, and real-world work experiences that connect them to high-wage, high-skill, in-demand jobs. We are proud to be partnering with Columbus City Schools, Ohio State, Columbus State, and Ohio Excels on this very work as we speak. I am so proud of our firm's investments. However, I also know that our educational system needs more than career pathways for all. Our educational system is collapsing under inequities. Research continues to tell us that students who experience severe economic obstacles perform worse than students who have access to more wealth. And COVID did our kids no favors and our community no favors. For over a year, too many of our students were unengaged or absent entirely. The impact of pandemic learning will be researched for years to come, but I think we can all agree that those students who were struggling and behind before the pandemic are at risk of being part of a lost generation that we will not fully grasp the impact of until their entry into the workforce over the next 20 years. We are truly at an educational crossroads, and the challenges facing our students, schools, and communities have never been greater. So welcome, everyone, to one of the best and most important CMC conversations you will attend this year. You have before you a panel of brilliant and bold leaders who I hope will educate us all in our thinking and inspire each of us to find our place in supporting the innovation of our educational system so that all of our students in Central Ohio have equitable access to the educational opportunities they need to flourish in life. And now, please join me in welcoming today's esteemed speakers. Dr. Angela Chapman, Superintendent and CEO of Columbus City Schools. Scott DiMauro, President of the Ohio Education Association. Dr. Susan Tave Zelman, former Ohio Superintendent of Public Instruction and co-author of The Buying and Selling of American Education, Reimagining a System of Schools. And our host, Jackie Walker, Executive Director of SkillsUSA Ohio. You can read more about today's panelists in your forum flyers. Jackie, we look forward to today's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to today's conversation. So I was informed by our pristine colleagues that there's no rules today. So I know you all are educators and really passionate about these topics. I was an emergency trauma nurse for 14 years. I would ask that you don't employ those skills today. So we're looking forward to the conversation. So we'll dive right in. I did warn our panelists that they were not getting the questions and they were just getting topics. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today. So first things first, we'll just dive into the deep end of this pond. As most of you are with public instruction, or K through 12, with the new bill that just passed restructuring ODE, what does this mean for Ohio? ODE, Ohio Department of Education. If you were selected for the new governor's workforce development cabinet, what would this change for you? And I want you to think big.
I'd like to go first. First of all, a governor wanting control over the Department of Education or a superintendent of education is nothing new. It started in the 80s. In my book on school governance and finance, I go through a litany. And these are Democratic governors, these are Republican governors. As some states were very successful in changing the model, and other states lost in litigation. So if you want to know more, read my book. But if I were queen of the world, here would be my vision for the new, what we call Department of Economic Development and Department of Education and Economic Development, or Workforce Development. Anyway, anybody who knows me knows I'm dyslexic and I can't do letters or numbers. And when I worked for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, I had to say in my mind, public chocolate peanut butter. Anyway, I think we have an opportunity here to create a new department with a new vision. And in the legislation, what scares me about the legislation is that it talks about two silos within this department. It talks about one for workforce development and one for K-12 education. Well, for the past 5 years, I've been working with a non-for-profit called Jason Learning. And what we are doing is integrating K-12, pre-K-12 STEM education with career development and workforce readiness through a localized curriculum, working with business and industry and local role models and so forth. And I'll talk about that later. But what I want to say about this new opportunity is that I hope we put together guardrails. And what I mean by that is that we stop these ideological political wars, but we focus in on what's good for children, because what's good for children is good for Ohio's economic development.
Thank you, Jackie. I will build on Dr. Zelman's comments. I think as we think about this work, it's a new opportunity, it's a new vision, but I hope that we consider it think about the entire continuum. So we know that learning begins at birth, right? Much of the research that we know about the science of the brain and the new research that we know about how the brain develops, that it's too late for us to think about how we build the foundation that our students need to wait till kindergarten. So I think when we think about the new do, I hope that they are thinking about the whole continuum, right? So as school districts, across the state, we need to be thinking about what does that foundation look like for early childhood education, transitioning into kindergarten. We need to be thinking about what the K-12 space looks like, but it cannot stop there. We have to partner with our higher ed institutions. So we should be thinking about this work from birth and beyond, like to career. So we're thinking about it with the full spectrum and complement of resources. We have to break down the silos. We have to be thinking about this work in partnership. And we need to make sure that we're creating opportunities for our business leaders to be at the table with our K-12 educators, our higher ed partners. We're having this conversation, but in several pockets across the entire city. We're excited to be here today because it's one conversation. We need to all be at the table looking at the full continuum and complement, because as educators, as our students, we think about the experience through the student's lens. They don't stop and start, right? We don't, our students, we want to feel the whole child approach. And so that means those supports have to support the whole child from birth through the college experience and then transferring to career. And we want to make sure that we're having opportunities, that what we're designing, building the learning spaces that we're creating in the K-12 space, that they really match the needs of business and industry. It's too late for us to be thinking about what the industry needs when our students graduate. That should have been folded in, and the learning experience needs to be wrapped into their daily experience beginning in kindergarten, right? So we think about those soft skills and those entrepreneurial skills. students our children are building lemonade stands at the age of 5. Those are entrepreneurial skills. How do we continue to develop them? So I just think that with this new vision with the department, I hope that they're thinking about the full continuum and they're not creating more silos, which makes it really hard for us in the K-12 space to begin navigate that work and build those meaningful partnerships.
And I would add, first off, I agree with Dr. Chapman that there is a real need for partnership and collaboration, and it needs to cross in and out of the education space. When we're looking at workforce development, oftentimes as educators, we've all been in, those of you who are educators in the room, have probably experienced a similar phenomenon that I've had numerous times during my career, where I've been told we need to do more to listen to business and industry and make sure that we're responding to the needs and we're preparing our students for the workforce. And certainly that is true, but it needs to be a two-way conversation. Rarely have I been in a situation where people in business and industry have reached out to us to say, what is it that you need, and what do we need to do to make sure that we have a seamless system? I think as much as it's completely appropriate, and of course with the coming of Intel and the continued expansion of the Central Ohio economy, making sure that we have students who are graduating from our schools who are college and career ready, pursuing a diversity of paths, whether that takes them into highly skilled jobs that require PhDs or into the trades or whatever that happens to be, or into education, because there's a real need to attract and retain quality people into the education workforce. Let's not lose sight of our purpose. So education certainly is critical for workforce development, but that's not our purpose as educators. I went into social studies education 32 years ago because I wanted my students to be critical thinkers, problem solvers, decision makers, so that they could be effective citizens in our democracy. Let's never lose sight of the important role that public education plays in serving as the backbone to our democracy. And part of that is ensuring that we're giving students opportunities for meaningful engagement, to really tap into their skills, their talents, and to be fully prepared, not just for a future world, but also have a positive experience while they're students in schools. And all of that builds to, again, the purpose, which is creating lifelong learners. If we want to have a thriving future as a state, we need to make sure that we're doing everything possible when policy decisions are being made to move us towards that end. And far too often, especially over the last 20 years since No Child Left Behind and the obsession with standardized testing and test label punish and all of this focus on accountability and choice, and I know, Dr. Zelman, you've talked about a lot of this in your book, and we're going to hear more about it. But so many of those policy decisions have moved us away from that. And so perhaps, and again, I agree with Dr. Zelman that this was fundamentally a power issue. It was a question, the restructuring was really about who gets to make the decisions. Does the governor get more power or less power? And what does that look like for the state board? And we have all kinds of concerns about it. But I hope that this, if it is a reset, I hope it's an opportunity for all of us collaboratively to engage in this conversation about where do we really want to go in our future, and how do we engage students and learners to create lifelong learners.
Okay, well, I see we have some overachievers in speakers who want to jump and include everything in said question. So I'd like to dive just a little bit deeper into that same conversation that we're having, because we wouldn't be doing it any justice without talking about charter schools and vouchers, especially as they come into the next play. So in 2021-2022 school year, there were over 715 private charter schools recognized in Ohio. How will these schools and these vouchers and the ability to choose change the landscape of education in Ohio?
Well, I like to go first because I'm the Zelman of the Zelman case, which really, I think, stimulated 2 other court cases from the state Supreme Court. And look, I think, I actually believe in parent choice. I had 3 kids, and I was a middle-class parent, and quite frankly, at the time, our kids were educated in what I call the land of truth and wisdom, Massachusetts. The highest literacy rates in our country during the American Revolutionary War, by the way, and other interesting facts you'll pick up in my book. But, you know, I was restricted because I had 3 kids and I couldn't afford private school for all 3. Now, I, again, really believe in choice for several reasons. But first I want to say, if you're going to have a choice program, we can learn a lot from other Western European countries that have 2 things: very strong program standards and accountability. We cannot exploit poor children and families over the backs of people who want to make money in the charter or voucher school system. That's one thing. Second, a book which I cite in my book by a professor at Johns Hopkins, Ashley, I think her last name is Brenner. I think parent choice is really important when there's high quality parent choice, and that it helps families think about the issue, what do I really want in my child's education? And again, you know, I know the field is going to sue over the charter voucher issue, but if we want a thorough and efficient system, we need to think out of the box. And in my book, I cite a lot of good Western democracies, European models that in fact have parent choice, but with, again, strong program standards and accountability. And the reality is, since the Zelman case, there have been 2 other Supreme Court cases. And it boils down to this. The Supreme Court says, if a state has a state program, then religious schools should, in fact, be entitled to that option. And that's really quite a difference from what they said in the Zelman case. So, you know, that's our political reality. And in fact, in Oklahoma right now, they're thinking about funding religious charter schools. And the irony is that all these national providers who have sponsored some very high quality, some not so good quality charter schools, and I see the Fordham Foundation here, the reality is that they don't want religious charter schools because it's their competition for them. And that's one of the reasons why I call my book The Buying and Selling of American Education. So thank you.
We have to start with what Dr. Zelman just referred to, which is a requirement of the Ohio Constitution that our state provides a thorough and efficient system of common schools across the state. Public education is critical because it is only through public education that we can assure that every single student, regardless of their race or their gender or their family income or their background or their natural ability, has the support that they need in order to be successful. And so the first order of business for the state of Ohio to fulfill its constitutional responsibility is to fully and fairly fund our public schools. So every student has a well-rounded curriculum. Every student has access to quality teachers. Every student has opportunity to learn with reasonable class sizes. And students within the public schools have choices, have options, whether it's career tech, whether it's in the arts, whether it's focused on particular college paths. We need to be doing that. And by the way, Columbus City Schools does a great job. My home district, Worthington Schools, I was a local president when we negotiated language to allow for the creation of a new alternative middle school. that was really student focused and teacher created. So there are all kinds of opportunities there. I think it's a little bit puzzling to me to look at this parallel expansion of charter schools and private school vouchers, because in many ways, we've seen those privatization agendas kind of come into conflict against each other. Charter school enrollment really kind of grew quickly from the late 90s, for the first 15 years or so of their existence, and then enrollment kind of plateaued. And now we've seen, especially with the passage of universal vouchers in this budget bill, private school subsidies, are just going through the roof. What the legislature just did in passing a bill that will provide any family in the state, regardless of their income, even millionaires, an opportunity to get money from the state to subsidize their decision to send their kids to private schools was simply a handout to the rich. And if you're wondering if that's really true, it was interesting listening to the debate over voucher expansion over the course of the last 6 months. Any pretense that this somehow is providing students with better choices, better quality, wasn't even mentioned in the debate. In fact, we know from evidence, the Cincinnati Enquirer did a great study and published the results a couple of years ago that shows 90% of the cases, students attending local public schools are performing better than their peers attending private schools on a voucher. So it's not about quality. We also know that it's exacerbated a lot of segregation. And you look at communities like Cleveland Heights, very diverse community. Most of the students in the public schools are students of color. Most of the students attending private schools on vouchers are wealthier white students. But buried in that language, there had been a longstanding provision since the creation of income-based vouchers in Ohio that said that if you're a family that makes less than 200% of poverty, the private school accepting the voucher was required to accept the voucher as payment in full for tuition. They were not allowed to balance bill for tuition. This legislature just eliminated that language. Now, what does that tell you about what kind of students they're trying to bring into the private schools on voucher programs? Let's focus our attention on making sure that all of our students have the resources that they need to be successful through our public schools.
Absolutely. And as the largest school district in the state of Ohio, Columbus City Schools, we want everyone to know that we are certainly striving to be the district of choice for all of our families. I am a proud product of public schools. I have been a public school educator for over 25 years, and I am pleased to say that public education is my choice for my son, who is also a student in Columbus City Schools. We know that providing education to our students, the highest quality education, is a civil right? We want all of our students to be provided with these experiences. And it's not that charters are adversaries, it's just that we are advocating for fair and equal funding. Right? It is our responsibility to educate all of our students. We don't get to choose the students who come to our schools, nor do we want to. We are accepting of all students, regardless of their zip code, regardless of their needs. We take them all and we love them, we support them, and we grow them. And so we want all of our families to know that despite what's happening at the State House, the work continues. Each and every day, we have a dedicated team of 9,000 employees who are working hard to show up for our students every day. And we're going to continue to fight for the best resources. We are advocating, again, to me, one of the biggest challenges facing public education is how we fund our public schools. You can't ask us to do more with less and then give our resource to another organization, be it charter, private, public, and then say to them that they don't have the same accountability. They don't have they have more flexibility. So you're asking them to do more, and you're taking our resources away from us. right? That's not fair. And so I will be unapologetic for my advocacy for the 45,000 students that we serve. And I know that, we can do this work together. We're not in competition. We are here to serve. We are serving our students. We accept the challenge. We accept the opportunity that comes with it. But at the bare minimum, the foundation of this, fair and equal funding is what our students deserve, it's what our families deserve, and it's what our community deserves. And when we can level the playing field, stronger schools will build stronger communities. It is about looking at the whole picture, right? We want to be the city of choice. We also want to be the district of choice.
So we wouldn't do this conversation justice without jumping into the workforce development conversation and how that fits in with education in Ohio. So our next question is, career and technical education centers are full. Many of them have wait lists. How do we ensure every student who chooses, and I emphasize the word chooses, career and technical education gets a high quality career and technical education wherever that happens to be?
Well, I like to get started just because for 5 years, I'm working on this new model for a non-for-profit, 35-year non-for-profit called Jason Learning. Some of you who are old like me might have remembered them when they were the Jason Project, which came out of MIT and the work of Bob Ballard, who discovered the Titanic. And they used to, and it's Jason because of Jason and the Argonauts, because one of the prime concepts here was to take kids and give them a week or a 2-week experience, which we are still doing all over the world with actual scientists, engineers, and the teachers also get to go with them. And we're just actually completed it for the summer, and it's so exciting. But I'm working here in Appalachia, Ohio, with Jason Learning and Workforce Development 15. And what we are doing is we've taken the Ohio academic content standards, pre-K, by the way, all the way from grade 12. And Jason Learning has an incredibly rich STEM curriculum developed by many, many partners, both nationally and internationally. But what we realized in working with both urban areas and in poor local rural areas, that the kids have not been really exposed and they have difficulty in learning, and a lot of their learning is drill and kill. And what we really want for our kids is to come into school excited, that they're going to discover things working with their teachers and their peers and really have good student engagement. And we also want to teach parents about what's going on in the school so they can in fact support it. And what we also want to do is to work with actually and youth, where we give our curriculum to all of them for free so they can reinforce what they're learning within the classroom. Now, what we do is when we come into a community, we survey the business, industry, and labor, and we want to know what skills do you think your students in your community need to be successful and also to stay in your community, because that's what people want, particularly in Appalachia. And we've been, so that's one part of the model. Once we get that information, we work with our curriculum developers and we look at state standards and our curriculum, and we map it out to everything that's in our curriculum, but we also develop modules which we infuse in middle school curriculum and high school curriculum, which leads to national certifications. And let me give you an example too. One, when I took physics in high school, and I went to an all-girls high school, so I didn't know you had a choice of not taking physics. I never understood thermodynamics. However, working with curriculum developers in HVAC certification, I had a better idea looking at a practical application about the theory of thermodynamics. Or if I took a chemistry, though I did get a 95 on my chemistry region, and we look at the academic standards of science here in Ohio, we realize that when we talk about safety in labs, we could parallel that to OSHA certification, which is really key to local manufacturing in Appalachia, Ohio. And by the way, we have a great partnership with the Ohio Appalachian Industrial Coalition. And Lynn Yost is an incredible guy, and he's on some of our videos. So what we do is we take local role models, local business, so that kids could see themselves in the curriculum. We make it practically based. They grasp the concepts easier. And we start in preschool and elementary school. So by the time they graduate high school, they have lots of different certificates. Ohio Dreams Jobs, OSHA certification. We have developed some certifications so they could begin in Ohio manufacturing in Appalachia to be successful and employed. And of course we do internships, apprenticeships, visits, and also our field trips, and they could also be agronauts with their teachers and explore over the world. This year, I think we took some people to Houston, Texas, which is high tech, and they had great experiences. And all of our curriculum is project-based. We have community-based challenges, so the kids get a chance to work with business and industry and labor to solve an issue which confronts that community. So again, I just finished a proposal with Jason Learning because we want more research and evaluation to give efficacy for this design. But in terms of face validity, we know kids are more engaged. We know that teachers are happier, but they're slow to adopt. But once they do adopt, they become the leaders within their school to foster more of an interdisciplinary, problem-based curriculum. So thank you.
We recognize that post-secondary pathways look different for all of our students, right? And so as a district, we need to be responsive to those needs beyond our current CTE programming. So we have partnered recently with Ford NGL, Next Generation Learning, to explore a community-driven approach, a lot like Dr. Zelman said, to building out career pathways, not just at our CTE centers, but at all of our high schools. So what that looks like is that it's a community-driven approach. As Scott said, this is work that we have to do with our community, in partnership with our community. And so we would work with the community, parents, teachers, business leaders, local universities to see, well, what are the needs in industry? What are the needs of the community? How can we blend them together and create those experiences for our students while they're in high school? We want all of our students not only to graduate with their diploma, but we want all of them to graduate with work-based experiences under their belt so that they will be more informed about their options post-secondary, right? Some of them may choose to go to college, some of them may choose to go right into the career, but all of them can essentially earn a credential during high school. And wouldn't it be nice if all of our students had a credential under their belt that have access to high-paying, high-skilled jobs? And certainly they could go right into those careers once they graduate, or they could pay their way through college, right? So there are lots of ways that we are thinking about how we prepare all of our students for the changes. Everywhere in the city, we're talking about the economic development in our city as well as in our region. One of the biggest worries that keeps me up at night is making sure that we are creating the opportunities for all of our students to have access to these opportunities here in our city and our region. If we fail to do that, and that work begins now, we're going to create and exacerbate the existing gaps in our community for economics, right? This is not just thinking about the needs of our students, but the needs of our families. Our students, again, deserve to have access and opportunity to the high-paying, high-skilled jobs that are in their backyard. And so we can't wait until they graduate to begin thinking about how do we put them on a pathway to success. We are starting a pilot this year in middle school with one of our partners where our students will be exposed to all of the career pathways in middle school. So even before they get to high school, they will already have the experience and the exposure. And then during their secondary experience, grades 9 through 12, they can then deepen their awareness and understanding. We want our students to know and be familiar with the multitude of options in terms of pathways within the region. And the more we prepare our students, we're also thinking about this is a game changer for our students, but also a game changer for their families. When we went to JP Morgan Chase not too long ago, they were telling us that they have like 800 jobs. And I'm looking for Courtney. I don't know where, but they had 800 jobs available right now. Not only these are opportunities for our students, but they're opportunities for our community members. So how do we, again, create those pathways? But we want to make sure that our community members, our teachers, our staff, our parents, our students, and our families are at the table when we're designing these pathways and for our students so that it will be meaningful and authentically meet the needs of our community.
I started my career teaching in a career center, so I understand just the incredible promise that this offers. I know that there have been a couple of barriers, and I'm excited to hear what both Dr. Zelman and Dr. Chapman are talking about in terms of innovation. But one is funding, and I remember also teaching in a comprehensive high school where when budgets got tight, career exploration programs got cut, so we have to make sure that funding is there. But another one is culture. There's a stigma, and it goes back to, as long as probably any of us can remember, that suggests that if you're pursuing, career technical education, then that's, for a certain kind of kid, but other kids should be going to college. I think we need to break that down, but it's easier said than done. When I taught at Worthington Kilbourne, our students had incredible opportunities at Delaware Area Career Center, but so few students took advantage of them because they didn't want to leave their friends, and there was like the social stigma attached to that. So the more we can take a varied approach and mix in, not just high quality career centers, but also programs inside our comprehensive high schools, start early with the conversations in middle school, make sure the teachers are actively engaged. And I think really rethink, I think we need to blow up senior year and think about senior year in high school being an opportunity for all students to be out working and engaged in community service and service learning activities. I think there are a lot of things that we can do, but again, funding and culture are the two big barriers that we have to overcome.
Talk about a personal story. When I became Deputy Commissioner of Missouri, my girls were in college, but we took our son to high school. And I knew I was in trouble when one of the local papers wrote an essay, published an essay he wrote, which he called it, Missouri, the Good Enough State. I went to school in Massachusetts and I died and went to heaven because I don't have to work, right? And I knew it was bad when he dyed his hair green and was wearing black too. So a colleague of mine from the department who ran the career and technical school said, Susan, why don't you let him take a course? And it was like, in computers or something at the career technical place. and he thrived. And that and being co-captain of his tennis team really helped him enjoy the high school experience. And when it came time to him to apply for college, he said, I want to go to MIT and be an engineer. Well, of course, when you purposely fail your math courses, even though how high your board scores are, you don't get into MIT, right? So he actually went to Boston University. He had an internship with Intel. He was there for 14 years. And now he was recruited by a headhunter. He's working for an MIT startup, and he's a chip designer, and he's designing new chips to power AI. So, I mean, but my point also is that given new emerging technologies, which really require kids to have a better background in the sciences, in mathematics, what I learned from working both in West Virginia, Appalachia, and Ohio, Appalachia, and also in Virginia, is that kids try to get into career technical schools or two-year community colleges, and they don't survive this because they don't have the rich, important academic content skills to be successful, because the technology is changing and requires a higher level of skill. And I think if we can make that point, Scott, to your good points, and make people realize that career and technical education is for everybody, and everybody needs a good foundation to be successful.
So we have gone into a lot, very high level, and gotten a little bit into the weeds. I am going to turn it over at this time for audience participation and any questions for our panelists.
Thank you. Whoa, goodness, my apologies. I'm curating questions online, and I have a couple that are actually similar because they're talking about money. Brandon Mullins asks, how can school districts better communicate needs to parents in their communities so that they can better understand the potential cuts or levy asks? And Rachel Oloff asks, what are the specific calls to action for the community members and leaders to finally change the funding inequities in Ohio?
I'll respond to that. We certainly welcome and appreciate the support of our community in our advocacy work and our lobbying work. As the largest school district in the state, we have a strategy, and our board certainly is working to lobby on behalf of the district. I would say to anyone who wants to support Columbus City Schools, whether it's in our advocacy work or lobbying for the district, certainly for additional funding, to reach out to us. I'll give you an email, engage@columbus.k12.oh.us, and we will connect you with a member of our team. We create a legislative policy agenda every year where we clearly identify this is where we're going to put a stake in the ground, and this is how we're going to advocate and fight for the needs and the resources to make sure that our students and our staff have what they need to be successful. So we certainly welcome anyone who would like to support us in those efforts.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Payne. I'm with TouchView Interactive. Also, Scott, I stand before you as a fellow Red Hawk, so there we go. Not only am I a parent of 2 kids in the Olentangy School District, but I've also made a career as a woman in tech. And it is, perfect segue into this question, that it is no secret that technology is such a robust and necessary tool to propel our Ohio students into the next generation for the workforce. So with that, ESSER funds, a lot of the funding that is coming from the federal level are starting to run a little bit arid. I'm sure, Dr. Zelman, you have seen a lot of that across the country in a lot of different pockets. But what is, can each of you address, please, the plans to provide accessibility not only to our classrooms, but also to our students, not only in urban dense areas, but also the more rural areas where there is still not even any type of internet access. So what is something that is right now that we can do to help prepare our Ohio students and the classrooms with that next step for technology? Thank you.
Great question. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to be at Olentangy Orange High School as they were welcoming all their new staff. And Olentangy has 141 new teachers as at last count, which is more new teachers. They have more new teachers than most districts in the state have total teachers, and fast catching up to Columbus is one of the largest districts in Central Ohio. But no, the technology needs are huge, and the pandemic certainly put a spotlight on the terrible inequities that we have looking at rural communities that were without access, looking at people in urban communities that lacked access. And I do want to give a huge shout out to the Biden administration and Congress that have stepped up to provide billions of dollars in investment in school technology. I think states and districts are still catching up and trying to figure out, how to do that. But there has been a historic investment. One of the things that we learned, I think, from the pandemic is one, it was just amazing seeing the resilience and how with zero preparation, and again, mixed results, but there was a effort across the board to make sure learning continued even under really difficult circumstances because we had access to technology that didn't exist 10 years earlier. In order for this to stick, and when we talk about student engagement, when we talk about really building lifelong learners, you can't do that without effectively using technology. I think there are tremendous developments in blended learning that can be integrated into the classroom and really find better ways to reach every student where they are and take them to where they need to be. But in order for any of that to work, really have to invest in time and training and support and coaching for teachers. So it's not just the software, it's not just the hardware, it's making sure that our educators have the support that they need to use technology effectively with all their students.
I agree with you. I mean, having now worked really in the field across the country, one of the things I learned about technology training for teachers is that you have to do different strokes for different folks, and that teachers have different comfort levels because, some teachers were actually thrived when working online. And it surprised many of the superintendents that I interviewed for my book that some of their not so great teachers, as they said, were just stellar in working online education. Other teachers who were very good, but not comfortable with that. And I think that we, in our professional development, need to understand the different learning styles and comfort levels of teachers and take that professional development and do sort of like a matching models design to really get them to integrate technology into the classroom. Because as I visit districts, and I do that for my consulting work, there's a great deal of variability about what people think technology really is. And different school districts have placing of technology in all kinds of different areas and very different approaches. So that's all I want to say. Angela? Yes.
Hi, I'm W. Shauna Gibbs. I'm with the Adam Board of Franklin County, and I'm an unapologetic advocate for all children. My question is this: I would like each panelist to give me one idea of how your Reimagining Ohio will benefit students with disabilities. How do they integrate into high school, into post-high school, into a rigorous, high-earning positions, not just at the grocery store, not the menial minimum wage jobs. How can we prepare our students with disabilities, those with IEPs, to successfully take advantage of this technology, take advantage of what Intel. If I have an IEP, how does Intel benefit me? How does the regional growth benefit me? And what will each one of your industries or initiatives do to pave the way for a better outcome for students with disabilities?
Well, I would like to speak to that because our first grandchild has disabilities and he was on the spectrum. And actually, I used to do research looking at the relationship between cognition and affect when I had a research appointment at the Harvard Graduate School of Education many years ago. And when he was sort of young in elementary school, I saw him work on a new technology called IXL. I was really impressed because I thought it was giving him executive functioning skills, ways to organize his learning, set his own goals. It was designed like a computer game with different levels. And I thought he was terribly engaged. And this was a very helpful technology for him. He really, as somebody who was autistic, had a very hard time, unfortunately. He wasn't in your school district, which I think does a really good job in special ed, by the way, Angela, in elementary and middle school. And my daughter actually pulled him out, and he went to a charter high school in technology, Innovation Academy in Tingsboro, Massachusetts. And he thrived. Because it was project-based, it was hands-on, he developed friends, he got a driver's license, he got 1,400 on his college boards, and he's now, God willing, in another 2 weeks, going to Penn State because he's choosing a typical major that kids on the spectrum choose, which is meteorology, and he wants to do research and forecasting. So I can't believe that I'm old enough, I am old, to have a grandkid who's now graduated high school and going off to college. But you're absolutely right. We do not pay enough attention for transition points for special needs kids. And we got to get our educators to look at the research and best practice, but particularly, my daughter used to say, "Don't study him, just love him." But I am who I am, and I was very disappointed in where he went to school.
I have to be the bad guy. We are running out of time. That was a wonderful question, and I will tell you that I'd love to hear the rest of the panelists' responses. But everyone, I really wish we had more time. But at this time, I'm getting the signal from Doug multiple times, so we'll turn it back over to our CMC board member, Tony Bell, for concluding remarks.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Well, I hope you found today's forum filled with hope. I learned that we certainly need a second session and something. Would you agree? We need an additional session so we can dive even more deeply. And I know our amazing new president and CEO, Sophia Pfiffner, will help us do just that. I also learned or relearned the words continuum, partnership, and collaboration, because this is an opportunity for this new vision, this new opportunity to truly be a game changer for our children and us all. So thank you to today's sponsors, JP Morgan Chase, Battelle, yes, and WCBE 90.5 FM, and to the Grange Insurance Audubon Center for hosting us today. Thank you for our virtual seat patrons and for the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, the Columbus Dispatch, and each of you for supporting not only today's forum, but supporting today's live stream. And a very special thank you and appreciation to today's speakers, Dr. Angela Chapman, Dr. Susan Tave Zelman, Scott DiMauro, and our host, Jackie Walker, Executive Director of Skills Ohio USA. Please make plans to attend next week's forum, More Wetlands, Less Runoff, and Clean Water for All, as we host 3 members of Governor DeWine's cabinet together for the first time at CMC. And for anybody who wants to talk more about this, you can talk to them afterward, I'm sure, because this is about networking. But please also take a moment to answer the short survey that's in your forum flyers, because we could not do this without you and your constant loving feedback. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of the afternoon, everyone.